Watch a newer NoteSchool student raise $2 million in 2 years. Stay tuned. Well, that is right. We have some amazing content we're going to be pushing out today. I think everybody always wants to know, how do I raise money? I'm not some big hedge fund manager. I don't have people to call with millions of dollars, and we are going to help you out specifically today. And so want to welcome you to NoteSchool TV. I'm so glad you're here. If it's your first time, hey, jump in the comments and say hello. That's what this show is all about. NoteSchool TV is all about interacting with you, making sure you're participating, we're answering questions, and just simply having a conversation. If you're kind of newer to this whole thing, I want you to know this. We are live every single Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time, so you can definitely jump on. And if you're wanting to try to remember because you're like, oh, I forgot to watch it again and now I'm watching it later, go to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and then there's also a bell that you can click, that bell notification, and simply by clicking it, you'll get an alert on your phone saying, hey, NoteSchool TV is going to be on in 30 minutes. Get ready. And then like right beforehand, we're saying we are going live. It's a great way to jump on. And if you're trying to figure out kind of what's next for you, man, you just need to figure out what are notes and what is NoteSchool, right? I always say go to noteschool.com/TV to learn a little bit more about really what that next step is for you. And so I don't know where everybody's from today, but drop it in the chat. Just simply say hello. We'd love to see your comments. And as this goes on, if our guest says something that you really are curious about or really hits home with you, put a comment in the comment box. Like, we would love to know that this is resonating with you. And if you've got questions, obviously type them in, right? But at the end of this, we're going to have two important things. The first thing is going to be our after party, right? We hang around with our guest at the end, and we just kind of have a little bit more casual approach. I don't know. I feel like we're pretty casual as it is, but stick around for the after party. And then if this is valuable, share it with your friends. If you know another investor who's needing to raise some capital, man, share this video. You can simply click the share button in the application that you're in right now and make it happen. And so, hey, we're going to get right into this. But as always, before we jump into hanging out with our guests, we've got to find out what's happening in the market right now. So let's talk a little bit about some news.
You, my friend?
I am just dandy, Mr. Joe. How are you, sir?
You know what? I'm just peachy. So you can be dandy and I'll be peachy. How about that?
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, man, the markets are continuing to kind of seem like everything's flawless and perfect and all that. Tell me, what's going on?
So, Brian, while all the news stories talk about, how the house prices are, well, they're literally up 22% year over year on a nationwide basis, whether you're in a small town of 100,000 people or you're in a town of 5 million people, right? But there's always that underside, right? So we talk a lot about burnout landlords here. And I found this story. It's the movement that is upending landlords' power over tenants. And it's just from last week. And it talks about more and more cities, states, and counties are adapting or adopting or considering a free legal representation for clients. And so Louisville became the 9th city, Louisville, Kentucky, to help folks that are in that space. And that same day, Washington adopted this whole landmark program for low-income tenants. Maryland on Friday. So, guys, it has just been one of those things where it continues to move on. And if there's if a lot of this doesn't make you not want to be a landlord, well, then, there's you're doing a little different than everybody else, right?
That's it.
And then secondly, as we go through here, and, we've talked about this for well over a year, right? We talked about this before we actually had this. We talked about penalty box buyers, right? And how self-employed folks, 1099, gig workers, all of those were having trouble getting home loans. So it's like regular news, Brian, has caught on. So a couple from Dallas who owned a pet spa. They moved to Vegas, and they couldn't imagine that it would be a challenge for them to get a new home loan, right? And so they say they put restrictions in place to make sure that the business is alive at the current time the loan is going to close. Most of the guidelines started changing around March 13th, 22nd, 21st, and 22nd of 2020. And Brian, hey, they've gotten stricter and stricter and stricter as more people go into foreclosure and short sale. And then finally, before COVID, it just was basically some tax returns and a P&L, profit and loss statement. Now they're requiring folks to get anywhere to be between 3 and 6 months of bank statement and a CPA's opinion, better known as audited financials, right? So it is, and it's not going to get any better, right? With the situation and with the foreclosure moratoriums, going away and all these other things happening. So it's an interesting time, certainly, to be in the business. So
that is very true.
News as it draws out today, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, we're getting a lot of interaction. I mean, we've got Gary here from Los Angeles. I see Jimmy and Brad. I see a lot of our normal friends that are always on as well. It's always good to see everybody. Hey, definitely say hi in the comment. And if that was fascinating to you, if you are like, yeah, that's happening in my market, type right now into the chat. It's happening here. We would love to know what market you're in and if you're feeling the same pain that a lot of people are, because we want to bring solutions to the table. And so with that, I think it is the perfect segue to bring our friends along with us and bring on Mr. Eddie Speed.
Mr. Eddie Speed.
What's up, guys?
Hey, how you doing?
A great day to be on NoteSchool TV, man.
It is. I started a phone call this morning, and somebody said, "How is it today?" And I said, "Well, not surprised, but always happy to see it. The sun came up in Dallas-Fort Worth this morning, so we're going to live to fight another day, guys."
Amen.
I love
it.
It's wild. We always, at the end of the month, we do a state of the industry, and I have something special for the end of this month that I'm excited to do, and we will. It'll be pretty cool. You guys will see it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hey, if you're going to be somebody who's going to make sure you're scheduling to attend that specific NoteSchool TV, say, I'll be there in the comments. It's going to be great. So, Eddie, why don't you tell us a little bit about our guest, Jeremy, today, and what we're going to be talking about?
Jeremy is one of our favorites, and that is because he's just such a nice guy. I remember very well the first class that Jeremy came to, and his dad came. His dad is an engineer, and Jeremy was an active real estate investor, and we'll hear his story. But Jeremy's sitting there. Jeremy looked so young. I wasn't sure he wasn't in high school.
Yes.
And now that wasn't the case, but he looks young, and he is a smart cat, a good guy, and I'm really excited that we're going to get to hear a story of somebody that took an idea and took what NoteSchool was able to help them with and really went and executed well. So you guys bring him on. Jeremy Scott.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
How are you?
Good, doing very well,
Well, you've grown a beard now, so you don't look quite so young.
I would have shaved if I knew you were going to say that, so I could look even younger.
It's a good trait. My daughter is 32, as you would know, and she looks. She does some acting in commercials and stuff, and she actually can play a teenager. Seriously,
that's legit.
So it's pretty funny. So yeah, I totally get that, and it's a great trait. And if you get old like me, then you're glad you look young, right?
That's right.
Right. For those
yeah, that's right. Jeremy was there with his. Katie was pregnant when you were at the class there as well. So it was you and your dad and your wife, right?
Yeah. So she was pregnant with our first at the time, and she was about to pop. Now we are 2 months pregnant with our third.
Awesome.
So it's fast times at Scott High over here.
Well, Jeremy, it's God bless you is all I can say, right, Eddie?
Yeah. Thank you.
No, I've got some grandkids that are right in that age of yours, and they're fun. And obviously for the grandparents, it's not as hard on us, but life changing. And my kids, and Joe and I would both tell you that our kids have changed every great thing about our lives. So you just keep going with it. So
well, we are done after this. So sorry, I'm getting snipped.
I got you. All right. So look, you. First of all, tell a little bit of your story, like just like a little bit of the journey you were on before you got here, and then we'll kind of go through a sequence of things. So just a little bit so people can get a sense of who you are and where you were at the point that like NoteSchool became a thing that you needed to consider.
Absolutely. And I remember it clear as day. I had just started, so I'd been a traditional realtor since 2014. It was 2017, so I'd been in the game for going on 4 years. I had flipped a couple houses with a friend of mine starting in 2015, and I was, when Joe and I were talking about this, I mean, it's like I hear Eddie's words still. Hey, if you're getting 1 out of 20 deals, that's great. Don't change anything. But if I can help you get 2 or 3 extra and show these different methods, that's when I was like, okay, I'll listen to this. I'll give it a shot. Oh, and then obviously you listen to the videos and then it's, go further. And then I went to the class, and that 3-day intensive was extremely informational. And really just I learned in that small time frame gave me the confidence to move forward with NoteSchool. And I know they had the different packages, but if I'm going to do it, I was like, let's do it right. And went with the platinum. Very glad I did. But anyway, that's really what got me into NoteSchool in general. It was coming across that video. Hey, if you can convert 1 extra deal, 2 extra deals, I mean, that would quite literally double your business if you're doing 1 deal a month. So that hit at home for me big time. And the traditional real estate stuff, I'm thankful for it. I'm grateful for it, but it is rough. It's just you're working for people. They want you to work ridiculous hours. They want you to be here and drop it, a hat. And the investment side of things, you don't have to do that.
When you say traditional real estate, you mean brokerage. You're a realtor.
Correct. So that was at the time. Now I'm actually a broker and sponsor 15 agents. I have 2 in training. And at the time there was only 2 of us, but so a lot has happened and really since joining NoteSchool, but NoteSchool has just been one of the mentorship things is what I teach my agents has been huge for, my business. And like you guys said, putting it in right away not to get too much, but as far as just simple flip deals, I thought it was, hey, you got to pay them cash and you got to be the highest price. No, not at all. You can get real creative. But my mind didn't even comprehend these things until NoteSchool.
So your attraction originally to NoteSchool was to learn creative financing so you could buy more properties. So you could pay cash at a discount when that would work and buy properties at a higher price, but on terms, right?
Correct.
And to have a plan A and a plan B. What you didn't think about, when you came to NoteSchool, was what has now turned out to be an incredible endeavor, which was the whole concept of could I find passive money and then own my own bank, so to speak.
Right. The raising capital thing, I knew it was a need and a necessity. I just hadn't gotten there yet. But how can you scale your business without having the access to that capital? And then your guys' training and be able to go do that. Like Joe was saying at the beginning, going back to the meetup that we had at the Note Expo, and we sat at that round table. It's guys that were substantially older than me. But I was like, hey, I know I got not a cult following, but a following where I could pitch this to and be consistent with it. But I did not realize, my main goal too was just to, hey, get out there and broker notes. But, the meetup has provided so much more advantages than I even imagined. And I'm talking just simple business, simple transactions, people who are like, hey, the note thing's great, or hey, I want to get involved in your rehab projects. It's that part has been amazing with raising the capital.
All right, so let's do this, Jeremy. I want to stay specific to take the audience today to like what this journey has looked like for you. You came to Note School. We had good stuff. You liked it. We taught you some stuff. I want to laser focus in on what you've done to get this result. Okay. Now, I appreciate the fact you give Note School credit for it, but I want to talk about what you've done,
Right.
like what your steps are. And so, once you get people to give you passive money, you can decide to take that money and put that not expensive money, not hard money loan, but that soft money. You can put that against a real estate deal. You can put it against a note. There's a lot of different ways you can decide to apply that money. But I want to talk about specifically today how you started presenting to investors and what their response was to you. So let's talk about specifically that. What did you do, and like what were those beginning steps?
Absolutely. Okay, so we were at the round table, leaving from there. Here's what you got to go do, taking their advice. Dave Frenecki had been doing his meetup. I believe Justin was the other guy's name, had been doing it successfully. So I took their advice, and they said, hey, go out and do this, host your meetup. You got to have a follow-up system, and you got to have a way to advertise it. So what I specifically have done is Facebook is the easiest. It's the freest. And meetup.com I do as well, and Eventbrite. Those are very inexpensive in my opinion, and it gets people that I wouldn't have normally got that will reach out and join the meetup. And I've definitely got private lending from meetup.com. And I think it's like $30 a month. So to me, that's worth it. We started out going, I live on Trophy Club Country Club. We started going to the Trophy Club Country Club. Well, then, and we started doing these in November, December or January was the first one. And so COVID hit relatively soon right after that. So we stopped doing our in-person ones, but it's like, I don't want to stop doing this. I definitely want to continue. So we went straight virtual. We started doing it once a month on Facebook Live. We do it at 11 a.m. every second Thursday of the month, and we have done that every single time. We've never strayed. It's just, that's what my advisors in the beginning at the table said. Pick a date, be consistent with it. And some people want to work at night. I want to cater to the daytime people and then also get nighttime, but I got a family that I wanted to spend time with. So, but like they said, you can do it at the night, you can do the weekend. That's just what worked the best. So we had a really good turnout. The first one, we had 14 people there. And I advertised the heck out of it. I shared it probably 4 or 5 times starting 6 weeks in advance. So that was very helpful. And people are like, huh, this is interesting. It's different. Like nobody else is really doing this. So they came out. We had a good following in the very first meeting. I'm telling you, she through meetup.com. I won't share her name, but she has been a private lender ever since that first day. And since then, more people have come out, and people who have been interested in notes, and we've brokered a few notes and stuff like that as well. But really what we're doing now is Facebook Live. Eddie, you would know where this is. We're kind of looking to target actually getting back in person in Robson Ranch. It's like a 55 and older golf community. So that's where we're actually going to start hosting them. Probably starting next month, if not the month after. And then keep doing the online thing, but start doing it two times a month just to get more exposure. And then maybe do the same thing. Because I've done the same PowerPoint presentation meetup over and over and over. And I've catered it and made it better. And fortunately, my social media department, aka lovely wife, has made that PowerPoint look quite a bit better. So that's been helpful. But as far as the structure of it, I will start advertising through Meetup. I put it on my Facebook, and I actually have advertised notes now once a week. I will send out a note on my Facebook and share it. And I'm teaching my agents what it is. And it's like, hey, I will pay you a commission if you find me some people who want to buy notes, and just working all the angles that way. But as far as the structure and whatnot, I'd say Facebook, Meetup, and in person is the best. But Facebook Live has worked really, really well. If you don't think anybody would show up to your event.
That's great. Yeah, so we've had a lot of students that have kind of carved this path.
Mhm.
So by the time you came along, kind of our ecosystem of students could help you with that and what they had already tested and proven. And we have obviously helped perfect the communication, the sequence of how you introduce it to investors. And so tell me who they are. What is a passive investor? What do they look like? If we saw one at the grocery store, would they have a special tag on them, or like what do they look like?
They would probably have a mask on still. No, I'm just kidding. But they come in all shapes, colors, and sizes, genders as well. I heard there's more than 2 now, but basically everybody comes and they're all different facets of life. I have people that are engineers. I have people that are they work on pipelines. I have someone who's in the car business, does really well in the car business, and has too much capital, which is a good problem to have. What kind of my goal has been is put myself in front of people that have too much capital, and then show them how you can help them put it to work. And there's not just one method. Hey, this is the only way. It's you tell me what your desires and goals are, and we'll figure out the best solution for it. But to get back to your main question, what do they look like? It's not all just dentists and doctors, because that's what Ben has done really, really well at his thing, and he's got a really good. So
Yes.
one of the questions I had when I was a young guy just starting is like, how do I get going, right? I got to go meet a bunch of doctors and dentists. It's like, no, people have money on all facets of life. And people are high earners, people are low earners and savers. It just really depends. But it's mainly casting out those lines with Meetup and Facebook and trying to reel in the catfish and then the bass and then the bluegill. We want them all.
Well,
because the bluegill, for example, I mean,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. It cut out on my end. Apologize, Ed. The last thing I was going to say is they will get smaller amounts, and they're great for partials or rehabs. But it cut out. Sorry.
So I want to talk. I mean, we've made a lot of noise about burnout landlords because we found a lot of people bought rentals and really weren't positioned for the work involved in a rental. So what do you find with passive investors that show up at your group? Are they former landlords? Is that never the case? What's that look like?
Very much the case. There's a good amount of tired burnout landlords in there. And then you get other people who have some sort of knowledge of the note industry that will show up. And then you'll have the people who literally don't know a dang thing, at all. And so that's what the goal of my presentation is, to keep it basic, but very meaty, if that makes sense. So we get into the meat and potatoes, but we don't get super, super into it, because you can get off track for that person who has no knowledge. And then the person who will just talk days of notes and business, that person you want to schedule a follow-up, and it's kind of a legit excuse to give you a reason to reach back out to them afterwards and say, hey, we wanted to talk about that thing. Let's schedule a time. And I do follow-up Zooms mainly. Sometimes we go to coffee and all that, but it's just easier to do Zoom with so much going on.
So when you have a group, you have to manage the questions a little bit. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Or that smart guy will try to discredit you very quickly.
Yeah, we have a name for him, by the way. we know that guy.
Yeah. They are alive and well.
Well, but once again, what you're saying is when you're having your group meeting, you don't turn it into a Q&A scenario, right?
Correct.
You pull them offline because they're going to have different levels of knowledge or different levels of communication. And let's be fair about it. Sometimes you get a guy at a meeting and he's going to be the smartest guy in the room, and you can't let him go take over the seminar, so to speak.
Right.
Those are just people management techniques that it didn't take you long to learn, right?
Right. Had a little bit of people business beforehand, but yes, there's definitely the smart guy. And there's, especially my first one, there was a guy like that. And I remember I just being nervous, like, oh man, I don't know the answer to that question, but it was almost like God ordained. I mean, the first thing that popped out of my head was, you know what? We'll do a follow-up and I'll get you the answers to all those questions after this. But for time's sake, we don't have enough time to get into that right now. And that put him back on his heels, comfortable, and followed up with him afterwards, still working him, still following him. And that was the very first meeting, still following up with that guy.
That guy won't ever give you any money.
Yeah, I'm kind of starting to realize that.
I can tell you right now that the guy that will give you money is not going to ask you hard questions. Yep. The guy that sits in there and's got to be the smartest guy in the room and it's got to show you how smart he is. He's not a passive investor, right? So people are so worried sometimes about, can I, now I'm not saying you don't need information. I believe NoteSchool prepared you for the journey. Okay. But I have NoteSchool students ask me sometimes about, oh my God, what do I do and stuff? And I said, the guy that's passive investor is not going to interrogate you. Right. The guy that wants to be a passive activity, but an active investor's return will interrogate the heck out of you. Right. He wants all your money, but he doesn't want to do the work. He just wants to ask you about the work you're doing. So those are development techniques, Jeremy, that now you totally get. And I'm just sort of telling the audience, we know how to help you position it in a way to get past what seems like that barrier of, oh my God, they're going to interrogate me to death.
Right.
So,
and one of the things you told me, Jeremy, was that you were worried about a question that was like, so how many of these have you done? How many notes have you done? And I thought your answer to that was really good. And, basically tell us what you said, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the one that Eddie just talked about, and then Joe, those are the two biggest fears that I had going into it. Right. How am I going to answer those two questions? And the thing I said is we work with a group that has done multi-billion dollars worth of notes over the years. They are the experts in the industry. So even though we're relatively new to this, once we realized the expertise that they had, we wanted to get in as quick as possible. And then people were like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's you have done a great job. Now you've raised about $2 million.
Not quite two, but we are getting very, very close to there. But it's nice, and again, I want to encourage the person who's at my stage 2 years ago, like, do it, because the compounding that's happening now of all the grunt work that's been put in over the last, and Joe called me out too. I took some time off during COVID. He's like, well, you got to get back on that, man. I was like, you're right. So I did. And again, I'm so happy I've done it again. But the point is, people will start reaching out to you if you stay consistent. And I get people who just, hey, I haven't talked to them in 10 years. And they're like, which is a third of my life. But they're just like, what are you doing? What is this stuff? And I've been saying, I challenge you, anybody, put pen to paper and look at a rental portfolio and vacancy rates and what it's cost to do stuff. Put pen to paper. And I challenge you mathematically, because you cannot disprove this, that this return is better. And I had a buddy reach out to me about a month and a half ago and said, man, I have aimlessly tried to prove you wrong, but I can't. Like that is way better than investing in a rental portfolio. And I was like, even with the appreciation, you can bank in, that in there. So it's let that be an encouragement to you guys. The mathematics will prove itself, but you got to go through the education and learn NoteSchool and watch the videos more than once in order to get it all.
That's it. Joe, circle the wagons for us.
So, Jeremy, you're going to hang around with us, and you're going to hang in there, and we're going to go to the after party. And, guys, we encourage you to bring your questions for Jeremy specifically. But before we do, right, Brian is going to come on and talk about our sponsor and Feeding Frenzy Friday.
Well, it's always interesting to see how Joe's going to say it this week. And he is right. We are going to talk about our sponsor. We are sponsored. NoteSchool TV is sponsored by both Notes Direct and the Feeding Frenzy Friday. And what is the Feeding Frenzy Friday after all? It is a playlist on our YouTube channel, on the NoteSchool YouTube channel, where each week we take a note from Notes Direct and we break down the details of it to kind of help you better understand the due diligence level and the steps you need to take so that you can build your confidence and knowledge and know that you can click that buy button on Notes Direct and buy a note as easy as you could buy something on Amazon, right? So it's a really great educational tool that's absolutely free. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel so that you're getting some of that content coming up. Man, I think that what we've talked about today, it really hits home with a lot of people. If you have really gained some insight, I would love to know in the comments if this is good stuff. I really would. We're going to dig more into that into the after party as well. But like I said before, sometimes we just need to take this content and share it with some people that really need it, right? So feel free to do that. If you're really encouraged by this and you're thinking, I think I need to jump on this bandwagon, what does this look like for me? Man, go to noteschool.com/TV to learn a little bit more about what your next step needs to look like. Or if you're somebody who's like, Brian, we don't have time for that, I need to know now, how do I take action today? Go right now, as soon as this is over, to noteschool.com. There's a contact us tab, and if you click that contact us, you can put in your information and we'll contact you ASAP, and we'll see how we can help you get going, taking those steps and helping you raise money and helping you start doing deals, and we'll get you going. We're going to jump over to the after party, and so for those of you who can't stay, I'm so sad, but we'll plan on seeing you next Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. But for those who can stick around, we'll see you on the other side. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for jumping in and hanging out with us. We had people from all over the country today. I mean, I saw Arizona, we saw Dallas, I saw Brooklyn, New York in here, which is, man, not close to Texas. If you don't own the globe, we've got Floyd in Virginia. And yeah, as you see, Peggy was in Colorado. I saw literally people all over the country chiming in to really better understand how does this work, right? And how can they start to develop some of these skill sets that you've taken and really grown with? And I want to start this kind of after party as people are typing in the question box right now. Type in your comments for Eddie or for Joe or even for Jeremy, and we'll kind of dig into that. But one of the things I wanted to talk about first was I love that when you told this story, you didn't start it with, well, I had a bunch of rich friends, and so I knew they would be the ones to loan me all the money because they like me. And since I grew a beard, I look older, right? Like that wasn't the conversation. Instead, it was, I went to strangers who didn't know me at all. I provided them value and they said, hey, I want to work with this guy. I think that's huge from a mental standpoint because people have these limiting beliefs they put on themselves that say, I don't know anybody rich. I don't have any access to capital. And as weird as it sounds, with that attitude, you're probably right. You probably don't. Right? But a little education, a little conversation, and like you said, a little posting for free on Facebook, it goes a long way. Almost $2 million and in under 2 years as well. I saw it was actually September of 2019. So under 2 million, but under 2 years. Very, very impressive stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie, tell us a little bit more about, from a raising capital standpoint, what are some of the other things that people might need to be, asking and thinking about?
Well, I think always, Brian, we always teach the concept of working with passive investors and just showing them some basic stuff. Some of us want to overteach. Mm-hmm. And that's why I said that if you do a super detailed training, which Joe and I or you could easily do, but you're sort of giving them, you're sort of confusing them. They want to know why. They want to know what the summary of it is. If I put up some money, what would I get, and how would I feel secure? And Jeremy has clearly done a great job. Jeremy, did you not raise $100,000 the first meeting you had?
Yes, from a person that I just met that day, and they came through meetup.com. And again, it's kind of lucky, right? But you got to put yourself in places to get lucky, and then be consistent with it.
Hey, Jeremy, just one question before Eddie jumps in there. And that was a high rate of interest. Half or 6, something like that.
It cut out just a little bit. Say that last part.
So what rate of return were they looking for? I think it was 5.5 or 6, right?
Yeah, 5.5 for one. I mean, it ranges anywhere from that's pretty low. But I mean, I've paid higher than that for other deals as well. But again, it's hard money. You got to put money down, and it's high interest. Soft money, you pay them interest, and they're typically willing to cover every cent. And you don't have to come out of pocket one dime on rehab, and then there's the note people.
Well, and I think, Jeremy, too, as the story progresses in understanding creative financing, whether that's buying notes or whether creative financing is buying property on the creative terms, then you start understanding the power of what long-term, inexpensive private capital can mean. And of course, to the investor, as you sort of alluded to, these guys have owned rental houses, and they've all had an Excel spreadsheet, and the Excel spreadsheet told them how good it was going to be, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then they have a checking account, and unfortunately, the money that the Excel spreadsheet said was going into your checking account didn't exactly go in there for the surprises, right?
Yep.
And the cool thing about notes is legitimately the investor gets essentially what the Excel spreadsheet says he's going to get. Right? Because they're the bank, they're not a landlord, and you just done a great job of just gently showing them that message.
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting too, and it kind of brings it back to the point that you mentioned a minute ago, which is Jeremy's not going in there and explaining how a carburetor on a car works so that they'll eventually buy the car, right? He's saying you want to go from point A to point B, right? And every investor, like Eddie said, it boils down to those same two things. Hey, what do I get? I need to get something awesome. And then more importantly, what happens if everything goes wrong? How am I protected, right? And by simplifying this message, you're actually making it a lot easier for yourself. And so what I want to do is, as you guys are in the chat box here, I would love to know, what are your struggles with raising capital? Put them into the comment section right now, because what I want to do, if we have time during the show, we'd love to address some of those. But even if we don't have time today, type them into the comments, because we do follow up. We'll make sure those questions get answered. And again, if you're somebody who's just like, I just need more help with this, again, reach out through the contact us page or go to noteschool.com/TV if that's beneficial for you.
I did want to say too, I'm actually doing a Facebook Live note meetup tomorrow. It's the second Thursday of the month. So if anybody did want to just see what that looked like, you are more than welcome to do it. And you can find me on meetup.com, Facebook. Just Google or put in Summit Cove Realty. I guess you can't really see that, but you can find me on Facebook, Jeremy Scott. Otherwise, if you look on meetup.com, you'll see the Note Investment Group and the
Can you say the name of it again, Jeremy?
Summit Cove Realty.
Summit Cove Realty. Okay.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, you guys are more than welcome to tune into that and get some ideas. Joe has seen it a time or two.
Been on there live a couple of times. Very good. And one of the things that I like about it, and I was talking to Eddie about this, you don't try to be this big slick guy, and it's a conversation. And that's why, we talk about all the time, every week when we're talking about with our Note School students, is it's just having a conversation, right? It's not, you don't have to sell, you don't have to push them. It's just, you give them the right content and they'll make that decision right in their mind. And that's what it really is all about, is just a conversation.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, then you'll run them away if you start saying, come on, give me your money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that Gary has a question for us that we're going to go ahead and address real quick in these final minutes of the show. He said, what is the first thing you would do to meet private investors starting out? And I'd like to, I know you've already addressed a couple of the different things, but one of the things that this is something that people skip over because they think it's not a big deal. But I'm telling you, mindset is a pretty big thing. You have to convince yourself that you don't need short-term money at 12%. That's step number one, right? And then it kind of just develops from there and grows like you've seen. Joe, Eddie, you want to chime in on anything on that?
Yeah, if you don't believe, I talk to people all the time that don't believe there's billions of dollars of long-term private capital that will give you money for 5 to 20 years at 5% interest. They don't believe it. Well, if you don't believe it, you're not going to do it. So let me just say that NoteSchool has now a lot of evidence from a lot of different people that have done it. And I agree with you, Brian. If the first thing you have to know is it is a reality. It can happen. And then somebody like Jeremy has just simply gone through the steps. So you don't borrow expensive money, right, Jeremy?
Not very often. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't done a hard money loan this year, but very, very little.
It doesn't matter how much you pay for money if you're only going to borrow the money for 90 days.
Right.
Okay. I don't care what the interest rate is. That's not long-term money.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Long-term and inexpensive, that combination together is what lets you use these creative financing techniques.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
that's it. Well, we are out of time this week for NoteSchool TV. I will say this though. First of all, keep the questions coming. We're going to go to the comment section afterwards and start answering some of these. But the other thing I really wanted to say too, if this raising capital concept is important to you, and maybe you need help kind of building a funnel of how do I attract the right people and shake it down, go to noteschool.com, click on contact us, reach out and kind of tell us that's what you're looking for. We'll try to point you in the right direction the best we can. And as you see on the screen right now, you can always go to noteschool.com/TV to get a little training, a little education, and try to figure out what direction to go from there. We'd love to engage with you. We want to help you take those next steps on your investing journey, start to really build your wealth and reduce a lot of your risk. So thanks so much for joining us this week. We'll see you next Wednesday at 11:05. Y'all have a great weekend, and we'll see you on the other side.